he never, it seems to me, actually pins down in any single picture he painted a narrative or a story. It is all suggestion. So that when he comes to paint a picture called The Camden Town Murder of a woman on a bed with a man standing over her, one of his most famous, a very small painting, a very intense painting, with absolutely beautiful colour in it, rather low in key, but lovely blues and greys and so on. I don't know whether the woman is cowering from the man or telling him she hasn't got the 10 bob for the rent.
It's not coincidental that it was reported in the Daily Telegraph that he told a reporter that after the Camden Town murder, he appeared at Emily Dimmock's house while the police were there and asked if he could come in and sketch the crime scene and the body. I think Sickert's reliving some of his violent crimes was through his paintings. What I needed to do now was to link the only surviving evidence from the case, the Ripper letters, with letters and memorabilia from Walter Sickert. I brought a team of experts to London and we examined the evidence.
Received a phone call from Patricia, and she was excited about this investigation that she was conducting into the Jack the Ripper murders. I was a little bit taken aback at the time because I thought, holy cow, you know, this is a bit much to chew off. Now, I told her at that first conversation, I said, well, everything's going to be a long shot, but if we're lucky, DNA from saliva or from fingers would be on the Ripper letters and match those on the Walter Sickert letters, then you have a basis to be able to sustain that particular premise that the Walter Sickert was in fact Jack the Ripper. What we've done is we've actually delaminated this particular letter, and using nothing more than a sterile swab and type 1 sterile water, I'm simply going to take this, and then we have this little area right here, and I only need a few cells to have enough material to bring back to Richmond, and we'll amplify it and see if we can develop a DNA profile.
Amazingly, some of Sickert's clothes are stored at the Tate Gallery archives in London, and we were allowed to examine them too. DNA tests took weeks, and I was very anxious to hear the results. Unfortunately, Dr. Ferrara had bad news. There was no nuclear DNA detected on any of the documents we had tested. The lamination of the letters had degraded any DNA trace.
I was crushed, and Patricia was disappointed, but she said, well, all right, well, let's go on from here. What else can we do?
Well, you know, I don't know exactly what they had in commercial paints back then, but it's not like today.
Meanwhile, I was buying paintings hoping to find fingerprints. We examined this one, which shows a rather drab landscape with a dreary winding path under a leaden gray English sky, not by any means one of Sickert's greatest works.
No luck. No fingerprints were developed on that frame, and all we succeeded in doing was dismounting a perfectly good painting.
This was all very disappointing, but there was worse to come.
Cornwell took some of the paintings she bought at thousands of dollars a pop, and in a sense gave them forensic autopsies too.
That's where this whole rumor started that I, quote, mutilated a painting, which I absolutely did not do. I bought it from a private art dealer. He did not package it properly, and when it arrived, they all had heart attacks because there was a hole punched right in the middle of it. It desperately needs restoration, and it will get it. I am going to have it restored in London. Now, if there'd been something in that painting that would have been really incriminating and important, I may have cut a hole in it, but it had to be really important.
From my standpoint, I thought, the one unique thing we were doing fell through.
Although the nuclear DNA showed no results and we had been unable to discover a fingerprint on a painting, we could test for mitochondrial DNA. It is not as conclusive as nuclear DNA, but in a modern criminal case, mitochondrial DNA can be a decisive factor in proving guilt. In nuclear DNA, the chances of a match between two different sources can be 1 in billions. With mitochondrial DNA, that statistic is vastly reduced, the testing extremely time-consuming and costly.
Patricia is like a bulldog. When she gets her teeth into a concept, an idea, she's not one to let loose easily.
I think I'm driven. I think that some of what comes across as my fierceness and anger is really born of a tremendous sadness and oversensitivity and things that are residual from very early experiences. My father left the family when I was 5, but what he did that was really cruel is he left on Christmas morning. I just remember I started just screaming, and it was and I ran over and I grabbed him around the legs as he was getting to the front door, and I was screaming, "Daddy, don't leave, Daddy, don't leave." And he just shook me off his leg like I was a tree frog or something, and he went out the door. And he never really had much to do with us after that. I guess I felt so victimized as a child and so humiliated and powerless because of being left by my father, having big financial stresses in the family life. My mother had way too much stress on her that she couldn't manage sometimes, and then we ended up staying with people. I think that I am a poster child for what the average victim feels like. I was sexually assaulted when I worked at the Charlotte Observer. I don't want to say by who because there was never a court case. But when a woman was raped, the police would say, "Did you have an orgasm?" Can you imagine that?
Behave yourself.
I think one of the reasons I have so much compassion for victims is because I know what it feels like to be one. In my case, part of the way I fight back is through my work and in defending those people who can't defend themselves, even if they're dead. In my search for possible motives, I consulted historians and doctors and one of my team, the eminent New York sex crimes attorney, Linda Fairstein.
In many, many cases with serial sex offenders, these crimes occur in large measure because there is a sexual dysfunction, and often a sexual act can't be completed, but sometimes that's why the killing occurs. That's why there is the violence.